one-way ticket, never boring. Here we go with JAKPA Stories.
Welcome to another episode of JAKPA Stories, the podcast where every story inspires another. Today, on this episode of the podcast, I have a very special guest. I'm going to let him introduce himself.
Okay, hello. My name is Tabeh. I'm a Nigerian and a new immigrant to Canada. Basically, I'm an engineer.
Okay.
I studied in Federal University of Technology, Mina. Studied mechanical engineering,
Yeah.
and I've worked in the oil and gas industry since 2011. And it's the same field I find myself here in Canada as well. So,
Amazing.
Yeah.
Welcome to JAKPA Stories.
yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah. So when you hear the word JAKPA, what does that mean to you personally?
Personally, for me, I see JAKPA as liberation.
Liberation.
Yes.
That's a new one.
Yeah.
But I like that. Liberation. So when you say liberation, is it liberation from the old to the new, or in what context would you put liberation?
So, in my perspective,
Yeah.
I said liberation is the aspect of unlocking those great potential, that was bottled up due to circumstances
Okay.
and environmental challenges.
That's deep. So unlocking those potentials that were limited by the environment. And it's almost like you have a door opened. And that's liberation in your context.
Yeah, that is.
We're going to dive into that again in the next couple of minutes. But when exactly did you start thinking about immigrating? Or what was your story?
Okay, so mine is long.
Okay.
It also,
This is JAKPA Stories.
Yeah.
We go
Yeah.
deep.
Yeah. So mine starts from when I was 17 years old.
Okay.
That was in 2007, to be precise. And my JAKPA story is, I would say it's centered around people,
Okay.
because, like one of my former bosses say, that's one quality he likes or he admires in me is having social skills,
Okay.
Your
So ability to relate with
Yes.
other folks very well.
Yes, so I like people. I like the positive aspect of people.
Okay.
So I learn from people, I interact with people from diverse culture, ethnic groups, and all.
Okay.
I relate with people that, some people would consider as maybe negative.
Oh, I see
I
see where you're going with
Relate to
that.
people, some other people relate as positive, because I draw something my dad would say, that good and bad is all about perspective,
Yeah.
you know.
And that's a really good point, because when I think about my own experience with people, I remember back then in college, I had this group of friends. There was this particular guy where, for some reason, everybody was just beefing him. They were just not flowing very well with him.
Yeah.
And there's always that possibility that because the people you're close with, they are not in good talking terms with someone,
Yes.
you're not necessarily in good talk in you don't have anything bad to say about that person. But because your friends are not in good talking terms with that person, you almost find yourself not talking to the person.
Very true. 100%.
So for me, that was an eye-opening experience, because I had to go create my own relationship with that person.
Yeah.
And I found out how amazing he was. And then guess what? My friends that were not talking to him, because of how I was relating with him, they now started talking with him.
So it's more like a force field. You join them.
Yes.
In.
But not letting any negative energy get in the way. You want to get to know people for yourself.
Yeah.
But there's a good and bad side of it.
Yeah.
Right? Because sometimes in the process of wanting to explore for yourself, you get burned.
Definitely.
Some other times you find out that, hey, this person is amazing. So
Yeah. So it's it all boils down to this saying that some people say do not inherit other people's enemies,
yeah,
because you don't understand why they even became enemies.
In the first place.
It could just be as a result of maybe personal, differences,
yeah,
that doesn't relate to you,
yeah.
so
Or you just find yourself in that situation where
yeah. And sometimes that enemy could even be your helper.
I like that.
Mhm.
You don't want to chase away your helper
Mhm,
by
mhm.
being in that situation
No.
where other people would. So that's a very good skill, especially when you move into a new environment, right? So you started thinking about immigrating at the age of 17.
Yeah.
Now, if I probably go back to my own timeline, 17 is probably when I was getting into the university. So would that be the same timeline for you as well?
Yeah. So if I explain more on that,
Yeah.
if I allowed to.
Of course, yeah.
So it all happened with my elder brother. His name is Edon Tao.
Okay.
He's older than me with like 10 or 11 years.
Okay.
So he applied to come to Canada, and since I was like in his care, in as much as my dad was there, my mom was also there, but me being the last boy in the home, and as at that time the last child,
Yeah.
my brother, took me, under his wings. He would
Oh,
take me to
nice.
school. I schooled in the north. He would take me to school with his hands. Travel all that journey and come back. So when he wanted to, immigrate to Canada, he also wanted to take me along.
Oh, I see.
So he took me to Abuja then, did my passports, we did medicals, everything. And I was supposed to go with him as a minor. So it
Wow.
was supposed to be easy.
Because you're just 17,
Yes,
then about
yes, I
to
was
turn
just 17.
18.
And he was
Because when you
rushing.
turn 18,
Yes,
everything, the game
yes.
changes.
So that was the idea. He wanted to just, explore that option at that time.
Okay.
I should leave, but we had some challenges then, and will I say fortunately and unfortunately, my dad was one of the hurdle, because he was like, why are you taking my last son away?
Oh, so your dad never wanted
Yes.
you to leave.
No, he didn't want me to leave at that time.
He still wanted you to be around.
Yes, because my dad had the obligation that he must train all his children. He had 6 boys, by the way, and I was the last of the 6.
That's interesting.
Yes.
Because a lot of parents, when I think about like African parents in that context, most parents would probably feel a bit relieved that out of 6 kids, one of the kids is taking the other one under his wings and wanting to train that person.
Yeah.
But
Well, no,
your
my
dad seems to be on,
No.
on a different side when
he,
it comes
he
to
felt
that
he
ideology.
felt obligated to do so, because he was like, you want to rob, my last son of what you all enjoyed.
I see.
And,
That's a really
yeah.
good way to look at it,
Yeah.
because for most parents they would probably feel like you're still going to be in care of your brother, but insisting that you're there to have that same experience that your other brothers experience as well, and under his care. But it wasn't from a point of view with him trying to also supervise how you were navigating college. Was that
It was out of love. I
okay?
would say, because I'm a father today, so
Yeah.
I understand. As at then, I wasn't happy.
You
about
wanted, you
it.
wanted to,
but-
get out
yeah,
of
because-
Nigeria.
Yeah, because I'm a father of 2 right now, so I understood.
Where he
or
was
I
coming
understand
from.
where he was coming from.
Okay, so that did not happen. You couldn't leave at the age of 17.
Yes, I didn't.
So was that when you turned to Federal University Mina
Yes.
for university.
So what happened was in that process when we were still debating it, my brother was insisting that I must follow him. You know, I went to Mina, I wrote the post UME, like that's the
Yeah, the jam.
examinations, yes.
Yeah.
You know, and I blasted it.
Ooh.
And my dad took the results
results.
and was showing everybody, showing all his brothers, his sisters, you know, also telling my mom's
He
people.
was a proud dad.
That's why does my brother want to stop me from, you know, attaining this university degree
Yeah.
in Nigeria, because I got admission to study mechanical engineering.
Yeah.
And my dad is a mechanical engineer as
Oh,
well.
I see.
So he was like, that this is proof that I need to be here. And at some point,
To have another mechanical engineer in the
yes,
family.
at some point I was like, I should have probably failed it. But
it was too late.
it was too late. It was too late.
Yes. If only you had failed it, then your journey to Canada would have been a lot faster.
Yeah.
But you went into it. You put in your best.
Yeah, I put in my
had
best.
excellent results.
Yeah.
Got admission into University of Federal University of
University of
Technology.
Technology,
You
Mina.
know, and so how was your experience then? Because I would think for me as a 17 or 18-year-old, growing up at that time, like traveling abroad was something that most people were looking forward to. So did you feel like your opportunity to travel abroad had been dashed, and whether another opportunity was going to come up? Were you certain that if you don't go now, you can still go later on, or it was really like, okay, this is probably my destiny here?
So it was more of mixed feelings because from what I remember, when I got into school, my auntie, who is like my mom, she told me at that time that, okay, you know what, just obey your dad, go to school. Maybe in your second year, if you still feel on traveling to Canada, then we'll process it for you to go.
And did that sound like a good excuse to you then?
Yes, it was a good excuse at that time. Then eventually,
Yeah.
what happened was that when I got into school and I saw the challenges of being a mechanical engineer, when I got to my second year and she threw that option on the table again, I was like, I've suffered too much in this school to quit now.
To want to quit at this point.
Yeah, I was like, we'll see the end.
I like that.
So that's how I.
So you
ended up-
embrace the
Yeah, I
challenge.
embraced-
You're
I
like, I'm
embraced the challenge.
here. I'm here already. I've seen some things. I've experienced some things. There's no need dropping the ball
Yeah,
at this
there's
point.
no-
Let's get to the end.
So I decided that once I'm done, then my dream of coming to Canada, I would pursue it.
Okay.
Yes.
So and that was 5 years in
Yes,
college.
5 years in,
Okay.
in the university. yes.
So fast forward after university, you started working.
Not immediately, funny
Okay.
enough. My story is, it's, would I say, dynamic.
Okay.
When I got to my final year, I developed interest in modeling.
Okay.
You know, I was a runway model. I got
I
into...
never knew about
Yeah, yeah, that's so funny. Yeah, that's so funny. I was a runway model. I was under an agency in Abuja called Scouters Modeling.
Okay.
I did a few runway shows.
Okay.
I even won in a pageant show. It's called Mr. Ideal Nigeria. I represented FCT. I was
Okay.
Mr. FCT. We went to Lagos to also compete.
Oh.
And my auntie was crying. She was like, I can.
And that was
mechanical
before
engineer-"
school ended or after?
That was before school ended and when school ended. When I
Okay.
graduated.
So you were just wrapping up.
Yes,
and
I was
then-
just wrapping up, finished my project.
Yeah.
In fact, it was after I finished my project, I went to Lagos for the big contest to be Mr. Ideal Nigeria.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I got there and my auntie started saying, who is my mom, started saying, my, devotion to modeling,
Yeah.
she was like, how can a mechanical engineer say he wants to do fashion? I was like, fashion, why?
You just finished having a degree
Yes, I going to
and you
do
want to
fashion.
go into modeling.
Yeah, so it was strange to her. She was crying like, no.
Oh wow, she took it so
Yeah, she
serious.
took it so personal. She took it so personal.
Like after spending 5 years,
After spending
how dare you?
hard 5 years.
How dare you
fine.
to switch from engineering to modeling?
Yeah. So I switched at that time.
But
Yeah.
how was the modeling, um, payout at that point? Was it just for fun, or would you think for a young graduate who is just getting out of school and probably hasn't gotten the first job, and they have a side gig, if I'll call it that way, which is modeling, because sometimes your side gig turns into your full-time
Yes.
hustle.
So modeling as at that time was about passion for
Okay.
me, and as a runway model, they made us understand that if you become a supermodel, that's where you enjoy the proceeds of what you've sown.
Or to keep you to keep focusing on what's
Yes.
coming ahead.
And sometimes it happens fast. Just one gig can change everything.
Okay.
So I saw myself that, in the near future, I'll be a supermodel. But eventually, sadly, when I got into the modeling industry fully, I realized that everything wasn't glitz and glamour. There were some things that I probably won't say here.
There are certain things they don't tell you.
Yeah, there were certain things that I realized that, they are behind the scenes.
Yeah.
What you see on TV is not really what happens behind the scene.
Exactly.
And I could not, be in that space. That was when I acknowledged my mechanical engineering degree.
And how long after graduating was that? Did that realization come to you?
So it took like a year.
Oh, about a
Yes,
year.
it took about a year. When I got in, and it was like, you have to break some certain limits
Yeah.
to be famous in the modeling industry, in fact, in the entertainment industry as a whole.
Yeah.
And I remember telling my boss as at that time that I'm not that desperate,
Yeah.
that I have something to fall back to, which is my mechanical engineering career. So it was at that point I called it a quit.
So they wanted you to come into modeling. You had to pay your dues before getting to that
Yes.
point where
Yes.
you experience fame
Yes.
in modeling.
Yes. But the
And
dues came at a price. So
So, a price that you couldn't
a
pay.
price I couldn't pay.
Because a lot of times, it takes a lot to be famous.
Yes.
And even sometimes we watch movies and stuff, and we see those folks on screen,
Yes.
but we don't know what it takes to get to that point. And that's the part that no one ever talks about.
No one ever talks about
So-
it. When I see very successful people on TV, I don't envy anyone
Yeah,
because everybody has his own story.
exactly. Like for me, for the longest time, whenever I meet someone who is successful or someone that I look up to, one way or the other, my question to them is always what challenges they faced before getting there.
Yes.
Because that's the part where when you become successful, most people don't look at that part of your story. They only look at the glitz and glamour. They look at the cars, the houses, everything, what you put
Yeah.
on. But they don't look at what challenges you navigated. And that's actually where you get the person's pain and how they navigated the pain to get to the other side,
Yeah.
right? So you ditched modeling, you couldn't pay the price,
You couldn't.
you chickened out.
Yeah, that chicken nuts. Full with my full chest.
Your full chest. And you switch back to
Yeah, I switched
mechanical
back to my
engineering.
Mechanical engineering.
Yeah. So between then and up until the time when you actually traveled, you were working as a mechanical engineer.
Yes. So
Was
like-
that always in Nigeria, or did you always were they, because that was oil and gas, right?
Yes, oil and gas.
Were you like traveling to other parts of the country or outside of Nigeria for work and
So
everything?
mostly everything was in Nigeria. Canada is actually the first and only country I've been to.
Oh,
That's the irony of it.
interesting.
Yes. So, like I said, from the beginning of this event, my I would say my success story is centered around people.
Okay.
I never did it on my own. But I always believe life is all about faith, persistence, and consistency.
Yeah.
So I never fell overboard in as much as I had people who assisted me. So my auntie, who is my mom,
The same one that
yes,
cautioned you
same
about
one,
going to modeling.
she played a vital role because she was like, oh, why is he modeling? Why is he doing fashion? You know, I would talk to my husband to get a job for you. So eventually, where I did my industrial training was in her husband's company.
Oh, okay.
Yes. She just said, no, he needs to be engaged, you know. So eventually when I got to those hurdles, I then called her. I was like, okay, I'm ready to, because as at that time, the manager was calling me, you did well in your IT. I don't know if that was 100% true.
Yeah.
You know, or if that was
It was just to encourage you
to come back.
to think about coming back.
But personally, I know I did well actually
Yeah.
because I didn't, in my story, I didn't, you know, take advantage of the fact that I had that in help,
Okay.
you know, not to put in my best. I was,
Yeah, which is more like in the Canadian context right now. It's what people call referrals,
referrals, yes,
right?
recommendations, and
Recommendations or
referrals.
referrals.
Yes, absolutely.
So back then it was you got in through your aunts,
Yes,
but you still went in there and you made sure
and
that
I delivered.
you
100%.
delivered.
So in fact, just to say this out,
Yeah.
most of the procedures that they're using in that company today, since 2011, I was the one who wrote these procedures. All
Oh,
their
nice.
manuals, their safety manuals, their quality manuals, their SOPs, you know, some of their tenders that they've submitted,
Yeah.
because of the procedures, I wrote them.
Interesting.
Yes.
That's good. So it means you actually left your mark in that company. So you were focused on mechanical engineering or health, safety, and environment.
So
Was it HSE focused or a mix of both?
I kind of became a jack of all trades, funny enough. I started as an assistant technician
Okay.
to the valve technicians. In fact, it's called pressure safety valves. That's where we were specific on.
Okay.
You know, that's where our expertise lies. You know, so we repaired and maintained pressure safety valves for one of our big clients was Total Energies. So we handled all that for them. So initially I started as an assistant technician to them. Eventually, you know, I became a PSV engineer. From a PSV engineer, at some point, you know, in the Nigerian context, sadly, sometimes based on the financing and the challenges in the workforce,
Yeah.
one person gets to do multiple things. So there was
You have to put on a lot of different hats.
Yes. So there was a point where the company was restructuring. That was in 2016, and I was designated to, you know, be in charge of the operations,
Okay.
QAQC, HSC, and procurement.
That's a lot of hats to be
Yes.
putting on.
Yes.
Were they paying you according to the different jobs you were doing, or
So,
the pay remains the same, but you're
like I said, because of the restructuring, because as at 2015 December, there was an issue in the oil and gas where I think there was a recession then.
Yeah.
The oil price dropped, so they did some downsizing and stuff. So, you know, you had a few people that remained in the company that they could pay for had to take multiple
Roles.
departments under them.
Okay. So just to
So,
keep things afloat.
Yeah, just to
make
keep
sure.
them afloat, you know, while they were navigating through that
Okay.
crisis. You know,
Okay.
so that's when I had to do that.
So that was the time when you stepped into
Yes.
all those different.
So they just increased my salary a bit. And
at least you were lucky. You still had a
yes,
job.
I still had a job.
So that's
Yes.
one area to still be grateful for. So fast forward from there. At what point did Canada come into the picture again?
Okay, so back to Canada. When I was working with them, I started the Manitoba program
Okay.
because my brother was still,
That's
in the picture. Yes,
the
my
older one,
yes,
the captain.
yes, the
Okay.
older one. He was still in the picture. Like you need to apply. That's I need you here because he was also sentimental for the fact that our mom had siblings abroad, you know, that she was hoping she was going to join them,
Okay.
probably for a better life, but she didn't, and eventually she passed on.
Okay.
So my brother was like, we shouldn't be like them. Everybody has to be together. So I needed to come because at some point everybody left.
Oh.
All my brothers, 5 of them, they all left to Canada. I was the
Interesting.
only one in Nigeria. So I think actively from 2014, thereabouts, I started applying to Canada.
So you started by trying to apply to Manitoba.
Yes, I started with
And then-
Manitoba.
So that didn't work out?
Yeah,
or-
because I was just in the pool, they'll be doing draws every month.
Okay.
You know.
So the point was probably not,
Yes,
not up to
and
it.
I would say I didn't really put too much energy as at that time. I was just going to the pool, like, without much energy.
Yeah.
Probably I didn't put.
Because sometimes you probably know what you need to do to like
Yes.
boost up your points.
Yeah, exactly.
but
I didn't really care
if
because
you're
I was engaged. I was always going offshore. If I'm not offshore working, I'm at the base working. It was just from one site to another, one job
Yeah.
to another. The company always kept us engaged.
So you were busy.
So I was busy. And,
So there
yeah,
was really no
I was busy.
there was no drive to like push
Yes.
through with all the applications
Yes,
to
with
make
all the
sure you
applications.
boost your points.
So I just entered there normally. Like,
Yeah.
if it works, it works. My body and soul wasn't really there at that moment.
Yeah. So was that the same approach when it eventually worked for you, or you did something differently?
So it was a different approach. When I got married in 2019,
Yeah.
when you marry, and when you start having children,
Yeah.
there's this sense of extra responsibility.
That dawns on
That's-
you.
Yes, that dawns on you, weighs on your shoulder. So it was at that point I asked myself, is this enough to raise a family? And sadly, I looked at Nigeria, going back to JAKPA liberation.
Yeah.
I asked myself the question, am I unlocking the greatest potential
That is in you.
that is in me? Am I reaching my limits? So when I asked myself those questions, and of course, me being in the oil and gas field with so much experience,
Yeah.
and I interacted with different people, did research of my job, what I'm doing, I realized that, I wasn't there yet.
Yeah.
Nigeria-
There was a lot more
Yeah.
potential
Yes.
that you were
Nigeria
not.
wouldn't give me what's the greatest or the maximum potential.
Yeah.
So it was at that point, and of course the environment. When I looked at the environment, this is the environment I want to raise my kids. In Nigeria, most of the things, you fund yourself, you do everything.
Oh yeah. You're
Medical.
almost a government of your own.
Yes, so you government you provide electricity for yourself.
Take care of your electricity, your
Yeah.
water.
Medicals,
Yep.
everything. So at some point you'll find out that, you're running into deficits
Yeah.
because trying to fund all this and trying to keep everybody comfortable. You get so it was at that point I said, okay, it's time to move on. So the first step I made was leaving the company.
Oh, the one where you've
Yes, the
always
one-
been
the
at.
one I started. I worked with them for I think between 7 to 8 years.
Okay.
I was
Yep.
with them, and I realized that they wouldn't take me to where I want to be
Okay.
in life. So the first thing I did was I took a loan from the bank to do my certification in rope access. It's a
And
body.
that's an international
Yes,
certification.
it's called IRATA, as Industrial Rope Access Trade Association.
Okay.
IRATA is an international certificate. I think it was founded in the UK
Okay.
sometime in the 1980s or so. So what rope access is a work is a skill that enables people to work at heights,
Okay.
work
Okay.
at areas where people cannot access in the oil and gas.
Yeah.
So in those days they would build scaffolds to access those places.
Yeah.
And when they calculate the manpower, the equipment, the tools, the materials they will use to build those scaffold, probably to fix a bulb, it will take maybe like 2 to 5 days just to build that scaffold
Yeah.
for a job that's maybe
take
done in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You get. So imagine building that scaffold in 5 days. Somebody goes up there, fix the bulb in 5 minutes, then they have to dismantle the scaffold.
Same.
So that's where rope access comes in. So it helps for efficiency for the company.
Okay.
And prevents loss of man hours and all that stuff. So I went to do
So
that.
they're
training.
saving a lot of money
Yes.
with that particular rope access.
Yes.
So it's like a shorter cut to get some difficult tasks
a-
completed
And a safe way.
and safe.
Yeah,
Okay.
a safe way. Not because we don't do
Yeah.
shortcuts.
No shortcuts.
No shortcut. It was a safe and efficient way in getting the job done
Okay.
on site. That has
Okay.
to be done at height. So
So you did that certification.
I did that certification. I also did an inspection course called NDT, means non-destructive testing, back in Nigeria. And I still give credit to my auntie and my mom because working in that company gave me the exposure,
Yeah.
to interact with people. Mind you, like I said, everything has to do with people. I interacted with people. I got to meet people who were doing this. I got to see different fields.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. In fact, the main reason why I even went to that course, I must mention it here, is that I saw when they brought some guys from abroad. I don't know where they came from, probably from the US or so.
Okay.
They came to fix the flare tip on the offshore field. It's called AKPO FPSO. On
Okay.
130 is the total energies field. And they use helicopters as a crane. They use the helicopters as crane to fix the flare tip. And the guys who were doing the coupling of that flare tip are rope access guys.
Okay.
So at that point when they were fixing it, I was with my colleague, that should be either Efe or Asuko, I've forgotten which of them.
Yeah.
We were installing a pilot pressure safety valve on site. That valve was like probably 400 or 500 kg in weight. It's a
Okay.
big valve with like 46 inches of bolts. And in Nigeria, everything is manual. We're using a flogging spanner of 46 inches with,
To try to-
with a hammer. We're fixing it, sweating under the sun. And we saw those guys, with, I would say with the swag
Yeah.
they use to do that, specialized job. It was,
Which you guys were struggling with.
yeah, we were just struggling fixing, and those guys were just there. In fact, the offshore installation manager came out, production manager came, everybody came out, they were watching them, and they fixed that stuff in like 10 minutes.
Wow.
And rumors were flying over site. I don't know how true they were. I doubt it if it was true because I'm here now. So they were like, oh, these guys just spent like 2-3 days on site and they've collected 10,000 USD.
Oh.
I was like, what? I'm like, I'm going to do this.
So you started inquiring.
So I made my research, I made my inquiries.
How would you be able to do that type of skilled job?
Yes.
And the
so,
certification was the answer to it.
yeah, so the certification was the answer to it. It was even small money. In Canadian dollars now, it just cost less than 300 Canadian dollars to do that certification back then in Nigeria.
And for
I didn't have
someone-
that money.
Oh,
I went to the bank.
to borrow.
Yes.
That's when you got the loan.
Mhm.
So for someone who is thinking about like going towards that path, what's the background that they're required to have? Would you say they need to have like a bachelor's in engineering, or is it just get some technical skills or some experience, get some experience under your belt, then go take the
Okay, so
certification?
I will speak on two views.
Okay.
I'll speak from my own experience and from a general experience. So from a general experience, I'll start from a general experience. For you to be a rope access, from a general view,
Yeah.
probably when you're done with high school,
Okay.
when you're matured enough, even maybe from 18,
You don't necessarily need a
yes,
university education.
you could go for the course. You know, all that course needs is that you should be physically fit.
Okay.
You know, and I would
And is
recommend-
that an online course or in person?
No, it's in person. It's in
Okay.
person because
How many hours or how many
funny
days?
enough, it takes just an average of 4 days
For 4 days.
to learn.
Okay.
You know, do this inclusive of the practicals. Then after that, they will bring an assessor who is sent by IRATA body.
So that's an external.
So he's a
okay.
more experienced person who is accredited to, you know, give examination, to
Okay.
examine you, to know if you're, you know, competent.
And is that
or
like
not.
the practical part of it, or
So it's both practical and theory.
Theory. Okay.
Yes, both practical and theory.
Okay.
You get, but you know, I would say the practical part is actually very essential because that's how they will check your fitness level.
Oh,
You
I
know,
see.
because rope access, it's considered as a risky job because it's a job at height.
Yeah.
If you don't follow the proper procedures as a rope access technician, you know, you could hit the ground and
Yeah.
imagine you falling from
From
a
that
of
height. Yeah.
100 to 300 feet high,
yeah.
or even more. You know,
That's-
if you
that's-
survive, you may wish that you were dead.
That's RIP right there.
As RIP, you get so it's a very sensitive and a
And
high
risky.
risk, high
Okay.
risk job, and I'm sure people who have phobia with heights will want to hear that.
Well,
But
for me,
it's safe.
personally, I have phobia with heights.
But it's
So a
safe.
lot of times, whenever I get to like a really high building or whatever, especially some of these buildings where you have a deck that is extended,
Yes.
where it's like a glass deck where you can see all the way. Sometimes even stepping into that place, I'm like, I'm not built for this, man.
Funny enough, the irony is that rope access could be for all because I know people who are scared of heights.
Yeah.
That in rope, they are even currently still scared of heights. They're in rope access. That's where therapy comes in.
So you're going to work, but you're also getting therapy.
Yeah, because there are some people that I've seen that went through height therapists.
Yeah.
You know, that will teach them how to
Interesting.
become. So it could be for all.
That's
for them. It's
fantastic.
all about your determination and will to get into the field, and it's very adventurous.
I didn't know there was actually height therapy
Yeah, there is. There is.
where they have to navigate you mentally
Mhm.
on how to face your fears with
Yes.
height.
Yes.
That's really
Currently,
good.
I have somebody working under me who went through that.
Interesting. So when you think about maybe folks who have not yet immigrated
Yes.
and they're still considering options like this, you know, back home in Nigeria, for folks that have this skill set, is it something that is still very lucrative for them out there when you
Yes.
compare it with what you're experiencing now?
Okay, so back in Nigeria,
Yeah.
because remember, I said I studied mechanical engineering. But I wouldn't say currently I'm working as a mechanical engineer.
Yeah,
I'm only practicing engineering
right.
because everything is engineering in the oil and gas.
That's right.
But I would suggest to people, strongly suggest to people, having a skill or a trade, it's very important and so vital.
Yeah,
Because I have guys who graduated from school with me, you know, they even have their PhD level and they're still struggling to have a job.
yeah. I was going to come to
Yes.
that because that's why I asked about
Yes.
the skill set and the level of education required.
Yes.
Because a lot of folks are, of course, everybody wants to be educated one way or the other. But when you think about the things that are really important to people, be able to provide for their families, be able to take good care of themselves,
Yes.
sometimes that university education is not really a guarantee that you're going to get any of that. And even here, you compare people with skills versus people with just college education or university education. The people with the skills are making a lot of money. For example, the people who are into trades here in Canada, right? A plumber, an electrician, those guys make crazy money. And it just requires those skills. Even when you compare them with people that went to school and graduated as engineers, but are not making close to what these guys are making.
So speaking on that,
Yeah.
in fact, I really like this session of it because it's good for people to be educated on this issue.
Yeah.
Now, somebody who has a skill is sure of food on the table
I agree.
because, skill provides service to mankind, service to humanity. Now, if you going back to what I said before when I was talking about my opinion about being general and my own experience.
Yeah.
My own experience is on the aspect of me becoming a mechanical engineer, going to the university. Now, I also added a skill
To that.
to
that education.
To that education.
Yeah.
It gives a touch of excellence. So, my advice to people out there is that do not wash down or look down on being educated.
Yeah.
And at the same time, do not neglect having a skill. When you have those two together, you become, what I say, a Superman.
Yeah.
There's a touch of excellence to what you're doing because you have a better understanding of how these things need to be done.
Yeah.
No shortcuts, how to, work with quality because you have that extensive knowledge that was attained in the university. So it makes you better at your skill, delivering your skill.
So that's like combining both of them.
Yes.
Because having the education on one hand and the skill on the other hand, and you put two of them together, and it's a super force at that point.
It's a perfect ingredient.
I like that because there's always the argument between, like even in North America for the longest time, the argument between do I really need a university education versus do I just go get a skill and start making money straight up after high school, right? So a lot of folks who are probably thinking about immigrating at some point, and maybe someone who doesn't have a university education and is probably thinking, I probably won't be able to do this. Your skill is still very important, but it's how you leverage that skill with the education that you have to really make the best out of it. People who are into trades here, they're killing it.
Yes, they are.
They're killing it. Because sometimes I look at some of it, just a carpenter that is doing like the decks for most houses. Those guys are doing super well. Electricians,
yes,
amazing.
So now,
Plumbers.
to add to that, that's one of the challenges we have at the workplace environment, where you would see someone who has a skill and probably has been working in a company for even 20 years, 30 years. Then some other guy who has probably a BSc or BNG, a master's or a PhD, who also has a skill, comes in and does maybe 2 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Next thing, he becomes the manager or even becomes a director. And you see the other guys who have 20 years or more experience, they'll feel left out.
Yeah.
It's just how nature works.
And the perspectives are usually different too, because the level of education exposes you to a lot of things which most people with just the skills don't see.
It's even as simple as interaction. lies in with the clients,
Yeah.
the delivery method, because that education that person has attained would help him deliver more to his clients.
Yeah.
So that's where it's just like
Just
it's
makes a huge difference.
Yes, it's cosmetic, simple cosmetic, but it's a huge difference.
It's true. It's
You
true.
get? So that's why I would always tell people that as much as possible, aim for the best. You can get your skill first.
Yeah.
It's important to get a skill because that's what's going to put food on the table. But what's going to take you to the next level? That's the question.
Sometimes it goes beyond the skill.
It goes beyond the skill. You get? So I tell people, get a skill. You could immigrate, while you've gotten your skill, because that's what's going to make you marketable when you come to countries like Canada, US, and the rest.
Yeah.
To just hit the ground running. But while you're making that money, look at the next chapter, because life is all about phases. You don't want to be in a situation where, you now become complacent of where you are. You now feel stagnant.
Yeah.
And you start feeling some, redundancy to yourself, even if the company doesn't make you redundant.
Yeah, because sometimes you get to a point where it's almost like you've hit a glass ceiling.
Yes.
And rather than you aspiring for more, you almost get stuck mentally.
Yeah.
Because it always starts from that mental level where
And
you
once
feel
you're not
stuck.
mentally stable, everything falls apart.
Yes. But I like that perspective because it sort of opens things up to create that balance as well. It's not either or it's not this one is better than this other one. But if you have the opportunity to get both of them, it's amazing. You'll be completely irresistible. So let's fast forward a bit.
Okay.
When you landed in Canada, was there any culture shock for you when you first landed in Canada? Because you mentioned that was the first time you had traveled outside of Nigeria.
To any country. Okay, so back again. I would say my culture shock wasn't really that much.
Okay.
In the sense that I kind of had a little bit of exposure in Nigeria because of Total Energies. Total Energies is owned by a French company.
Yeah.
So imagine working since 2011 until I left Nigeria in 2024.
Okay.
I was working with French people.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's
so-
over
Yeah, so
13 years.
yeah, so over time, I got used to meeting different people, not just the French, because it's a multicultural company.
Yeah.
I met people from the UK, people people from Scotland and UK, they're different, right? Yeah,
I mean, they're all part of
yes.
UK. but-
France, met people from different parts of the world, Asians and all. They would come to Total Energies to work.
Okay.
So I interacted with them, worked with them. Some of them, I reported to them.
And most of them will be coming in as expatriates.
Yes, they call them expatriates. So I learned under them.
So
you
right
know.
now you're an expatriate.
Yes. So coming to Canada, I remember when I got my job and I was at work when my cousin from Nigeria, one of my cousins from Nigeria, she called me and we're talking on phone. It was a video call. And some of my colleagues were talking to me. And when I was talking to them, she was like, we just started this job like a month ago. The way you are relating with them, like you've been there forever.
Right.
So that's when it dawned on me that, okay, because of my experience in Nigeria.
Yeah,
that's
working with.
But where my culture shock came was the food.
Oh,
Yes.
food.
The food. I remember going out with my colleagues. That was at Fort McMurray. They took me to one place, a bar and lounge or so. It's called Brew House.
Okay.
And I was looking at the menu. First thing I was like, what do I order from here? Everything looked like quadratic
You just
equation.
see different names.
Yes, it looked like quadratic equation for me. I was like, I couldn't pick. You know, they were just speaking, give me this, give me that, give me. I can't even call them because even till now, I still have that culture shock.
Yeah.
You know, so I was looking at the menu and I saw something like they said rice, something. I can't even.
You assumed it was the
Yes,
rice.
I thought it would be my jollof rice or my fried rice or something, you know, and I ordered for it. You know, they brought it, it came so beautiful, you know, the aesthetics on the rice,
Yeah.
you know, it was like an artist did
That
something
worked on
on
your
the
food.
Yeah. You know, I was like, oh, looks very nice, it will be yummy. And when I took the first spoon and I put it in my mouth, it was cold.
Oh wow.
Cold, like
It's almost like it
ice
was brought out
cold.
from the fridge.
Almost like, I was like, who brings rice from the fridge? And I turned to one of my colleagues, she's Jamaican,
Yeah.
and I was like, the rice is cold. She was like, yes, that's what you ordered for. I was like, is rice supposed to be cold? So immediately she understood,
Yeah.
you know,
Where you're
when I'm
coming
coming from Africa.
Yeah.
She was like, oh, that's true. She now called the waiter for me, and the lady came and she was like, what's the problem? I'm like, the rice is cold. She was like, yes, that's what you ordered for. I was like, can you make it hot? Can you warm it up? Yes. I looked strange to them. You know.
Yeah.
They had to take the rice, of course. They put it in a microwave, probably, brought it back to me. You know, another thing is no pepper in this country. Oh my God, no pepper. When I tell them
there's no, because you know here,
They call it
sometimes you
spicy.
hear,
They say
you hear
spicy.
about spice.
so now, speaking of this spicy,
it's spicy, it's mild, it's,
Yes.
you know, they're gonna ask you like the different, the spice level that you want.
So speaking of this spicy,
Yeah.
so when I told them no pepper, they were like,
What is pepper?
What is pepper? I'm like, I had to bring out my phone. I literally brought out my phone and I
To show them
typed
pepper.
pepper. Went to images on Google, showed them they said, she was like, you mean spicy? You want it spicy? I was like, which one is spicy again? They're like,
Say
"Okay,
bring
no."
pepper.
Then I brought the so-called spicy.
Yeah.
When I poured it into the food, it was sweet.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. So that's my challenge. That's
That
my
was
cultural
so the
shock.
food was a major one for
In
you.
fact, I would say it's still shocking me to know.
Right? But that's usually, but it happens more when you travel for work. When you come back to Calgary,
Yes.
how is the food? Like that balance? Because I know there's a lot of like African vendors in Calgary. So if you want your jollof rice, you can get it. If you want like any type of food, you could literally get it. But how was that balance for you? Were you always looking forward to getting back to Calgary, or
Yes, I was looking forward to getting back to Calgary. But it still has its own challenges too.
yeah?
Just like where I'm staying,
Okay.
you have like two major African restaurants here owned by Nigerians
Yeah.
where they cook all the delicacies that is like you're eating from home. I love those places. But another challenge is that the price.
Oh, I see.
It's
I
pricey.
see. It's very
know.
pricey.
And you know, when I first came to Canada, you know, one of my other brothers said, don't go to a restaurant. Because if you go to a restaurant, it's expensive. But when I realized that the so-called restaurant are not as expensive as the African restaurant.
Yeah. I
Yes,
agree
so-
with you on that. 100%.
So sometimes I ask myself, I'm like, should I just kukuma go to the Oyibo whites restaurant
go
and
eat, grab your burger,
manage their
grab
food?
your
It's cheaper,
yeah.
you know. So because so it's more like the African restaurants. Yeah, when you want to go there, you know, you prepare your mind that your luxury at that time. You're gonna eat luxury.
Yeah.
You know, imagine buying a bottle of Heineken or stout for over $20.
Yeah. So I
The
think
cheapest would
I
maybe
think
see
I
at
think
$18.
for
And I still convert to naira. That's my problem.
oh, you still do
I
that.
still convert.
That's part of the culture shock.
That's part of it. I still come. So I'm like, I'm drinking this one bottle of beer for 20,000 naira.
It's part of the culture shock.
I'll use that. I'll use that to host all my friends in Nigeria. If I bring out 20,000 in Nigeria to buy drinks, they'll be calling me Team Money.
They'll be hailing you.
Team Money.
Yeah, I think in all fairness to the folks that like try to import those foods. It takes a lot to import
Yeah.
them,
Oh,
right?
well.
So, and understanding that they have to put their margins and they have to,
Yeah.
you know,
Of course, they have to
but
make
but
profit
but at
as
the end
well.
of the day, they should try
But
to
they should
keep it
calm down. They
balanced. They
shouldn't
should
kill
calm
us
down,
now. Let
right?
us enjoy. Who knows? Maybe from here now, we'll be going to
Right,
Delish.
to go and load
Yes.
up.
Yes. So
Anyway, shout out to the folks around here that do that. Shout out to
shout out to Delish.
Delish.
Shout out to 360 Lounge.
Yep.
It's those places make me feel like I'm still in Port Harcourt.
They try to
Port Harcourt
bring
City,
they try to
yes.
bring home back
Yeah,
over
now
here.
I was telling my wife the other day, I'm like, I'm going to the boss because that was our normal lounge in Port Harcourt, the
Yeah.
boss lounge, So I see Delish and 360 Lounge as, I'm going to the boss.
Right.
And that's also part of the culture shock because I miss
Your
friends
food.
and family
Yeah.
in Nigeria, my homies, where we hang out, and all that stuff. So
Yeah, because here is a bit different, right? You might have time, but the folks that you want to hang out with, they're not necessarily free
yeah,
during that particular weekend. So, and that whole camaraderie spirit back at home, where you just give your guy a call, like, hey, how far? They
up,
pull up. They pull up straight up.
immediately.
All right. So moving on from there, so when you moved here, did you move with your family or did you come alone?
Okay, so initially I moved in March of 2024.
Okay.
I came here alone. I have a wife and 2 kids, a boy and a girl. My boy is 5, my girl is 3 years old.
Okay.
So I left them in Nigeria. I discussed with my wife. I told her that, coming to Canada, I need to first go settle in, get
Okay.
a job. So probably when I come in, just to save costs, I'll probably have to, squat with my brothers,
Okay.
people around me, my relatives. And once I'm settled, I'll bring you guys. Now, that was another challenge because my visa, the process was so funny because when I got into the main application after
Yeah.
receiving the ITA, I received the ITA like in August of 2023. Yes. And from the time I received the ITA to the time I applied, like in September,
Okay.
my passport with the visa got back to me in January 2024.
Interesting.
Now, mind you, it had already started counting.
So you had just a very short period of time.
Yes.
To
So
travel.
everybody had to land on or before September 5th. I was at a job in Nigeria. I went offshore. I came back in January, after which in February, we had to celebrate my dad's 80th birthday.
Yeah.
So I traveled in March. So coming to Canada in March, I just have few months to September in order for everybody to land.
Right.
I had to get a place. Okay, first of all, get a job, get a place, be stable, then also book their tickets for them to
For
come.
them to come over.
Now, when I was ready to book the tickets to come, the prices of tickets went very high. I was like, what's happening? The cheapest ticket I saw was in August. In fact, it was just by chance. I don't know. That ticket just came out. So it cost me over 8,000 Canadian dollars to bring my
that's-
wife and 2 kids.
That's for three. Wow.
Yeah. I think my daughter was 2 years old as at that time.
Yeah, and I know for kids, the moment they turn 2,
Yes.
they pay very standard like every other
Yeah.
person.
It was over $8,000 Canadian dollars. That doesn't include the domestic flights. I have to fly them from Port Harcourt to Lagos, to buy them stuff, prepare them for the winter.
Yeah.
Buying a whole new clothes,
Outfits.
and all that stuff
Yeah.
to meet the weather. Yeah. So it was quite challenging. And at the same time, I didn't want them to come and we all squat.
Of course.
In as much as my brothers are loving and caring, I don't want us to stay in one big home, but I didn't want that.
Yeah.
I wanted us to have our own home. and all that. So
Because once you have your own place, they
yeah,
definitely
your
feel free.
privacy and all
Yeah,
that.
there's
They feel
privacy
free.
and everything.
Yes. So
Well, so you came first, then they came much later on. And when you came, so you also got soft landing from your brothers.
yes. So that's why it still boils down to people.
Yeah.
I had my brothers here. So my brother picked me, one of my brother, and that's how picked me up from the airport. Took me to his place where he was staying.
Okay.
It was I didn't even know that he was paying for our space. I just thought, oh, it was free because I thought it was like Nigeria. He
You're
was
thinking
Yeah.
free for everything.
yeah. He just kept quiet about it. He was paying out of his pocket. For
You didn't know that
I didn't know.
everything out
I didn't
here,
know Canada is a different place.
there's money attached to it.
Yes, there's money. But he did that, out of his goodwill, without even telling me, because he didn't want me
that's
to
good.
feel any guilt, like, oh, why are you taking this burden and all that, because he just wanted me to focus on getting a job,
Yeah.
be comfortable and all that stuff. So, he was doing all that, and I was with him, So it was kind of emotional, I would say.
Right? I know, but it's I think understanding the journey, right? Because that's one of the reasons why we started this podcast. Because when I think about my own journey, when I came in and how quickly I would have moved or navigated certain things without knowing or learning from other people who are already more experienced, I essentially moved at my own pace based on my own learnings, right? And then fast forward from there, other people, when they come in, there's some of them that connect with me, and I would mentor them. I would show them the path. Like, hey, if this is what you want to focus on, this is how to do it. This is how to navigate it faster. And soft landing, funny enough, is anybody that is opportune to get it. My advice is embrace it. Don't stay on it for too long, so you don't get
Yes,
complacent and you think that that's actually how things are going to be. Embrace it, take that advantage, and then bounce up from there and move fast.
Yeah, I couldn't even have the luxury of, being complacent in the soft landing, because I still had to send money home monthly for my
Because your wife and kids were still,
kids.
yeah.
And while I was here, it was as if everything just, went bad, because while they were back in Nigeria, I would get calls like maybe 3 times or twice in a month. The kids are sick. At some point, my wife will fall sick.
Oh.
Malaria, typhoid. They're at the hospital. And I remember, one of my brothers offering me, a side gig.
Okay.
To help build websites. In fact, I learned how to build websites in Canada.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I learned how. He just showed me one day. Well, like, okay, this is how to do it, and I was like, oh, these are the build website.
So that was part of your hustle.
Yes, I started building websites for him, for his business. In fact, he got some other businesses. Well, I'll build website for them and maintain their website. But because these are like startup companies,
Yeah.
I was getting like was it $20 a week or $20 a month? Yeah, but I've forgotten.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think $20 a week or thereabout.
But just as a side gig.
Yeah, just as a
get
side gig.
extra.
And mind you, I'm still converting to Naira. So that $20, I'll just quickly go on LearnFi
And send it over.
And send it over.
Wow.
So I didn't have that luxury to like, and mind you, I had on my mind, I need to buy tickets for them to come.
Yeah.
I need to rent a house.
That's pressure right there.
So speaking of people are so essential in life.
Yeah.
I tell people that a lot. I even tell my wife, I tell friends, don't just go about hating somebody for nothing. One other instrument of me being where I am today, here in Canada, is people.
Yeah.
One person, a guy. We worked in Nigeria together, back in Egina FPSO and Akpo FPSO.
Okay.
We're not friends, funny enough. Most of the other colleagues did not understand him. That's the word I will use, because he was of the quiet time. He does things with care, and all that. I really didn't understand where the beef was coming from, because people did not just like him.
Did they probably assume he was feeling too big or
Yeah, I don't
too,
know.
too pompous?
I really could not point. But those kind of guys that, because they know that people don't really interact with them, they now isolate themselves somehow.
Yeah.
And if you're not careful, you'll be forced to go with the crowd, not to associate with that person.
Very
You
true.
understand? But I didn't do that. You understand? I just, when I see him, I just hail him, try to bring up conversation with him, chill with him. Then eventually, we were on the same level then in rope access. He upgraded and he became my supervisor. I didn't say that because we got into rope access almost the same time that I would disrespect him or I would listen to him. When I worked with him, initially when we wanted to work together, I'm sure he first thought that probably this guy will want to resist. And I just called him one corner. I told him, "Hey, bro, what's up? Anything you want me to do,
Just tell me.
just tell me, I'll do it for you. You're my boss.
Yeah.
Forget we started together or something. This is the office you hold and I will respect it.
Yeah.
Anything you want me to do, I'll do it." So as I said that to him, that thing just broke the barrier.
Because sometimes it's also a mental thing.
Yes.
He might be thinking about it,
Yeah.
but not have the audacity to tell you.
Then it didn't end there. Based on my social skill, when we finished that job and we came out, we got to town. He was supposed to go to the airport. I was like, "What time is your flight?" His flight was like maybe the next 5 hours or so.
Okay.
I was like, "Let's go and chill now. Make we go chill."
Yeah.
Do you understand? We went, in as much as it was my boss, we had some drinks. It was time to pay. He wanted to pay. I was like, "No, chill." I was one that requested we should go out.
Yeah.
So just that small, thing I did, which I didn't expect anything in return.
Right.
That guy came to Canada before me.
Oh, he got here before
Yeah, he got
you.
here before me. He immigrated to Canada before me. He was even keeping it on a low key. But before he just told me, "I'm moving to Canada.
Yeah.
I've heard you talked about Canada, so that's what I'm telling you." I was like, "Oh, that's nice." And when I got here, I called him. I was like, "Bro, man, I'm in
And
Canada."
was he in Alberta as well? or-
Yes, in Alberta. He stays in Edmonton.
Interesting.
I just said, "Man, bro, I'm in Canada now, so if there's any recommendations, let me know."
Let me know.
And I'll tell you today, that was the guy who gave me the pointers. Say, "Okay, apply here, apply here, apply here." I'll put in some recommendations when
Yeah.
you put when you
Get your
prepare your
resume in.
CV
Yeah.
or your resume, you could. He didn't even tell me. I just put him as one of my referees.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that that's how I got the job. Because when they were doing their, what I call it, due diligence and fact finding,
Yeah.
those were the people they asked, "Do you know this guy? Does he have a good working ethic? Is he competent? Is he this? Is he that?"
And the
Tell us his
reputation.
negative. So he was the one
That
who
spoke on your
spoke
behalf.
on my behalf. And finally, one other guy, Chima, the site that's in Fort McMurray where I'm working today, when my resume had landed on the table that, okay, this is a possible person we want to employ, they went and found another guy who was working there in that same company, in that same field, and they asked him, "Chima, please, there's a resume on our table. We want you to come and look at it. Do you know this person?"
Okay.
In fact, the manager told him, from what the guy told me, the manager told him that if you say this guy is competent and he's good for this job, because already they've said he's competent, we've looked at his CV, everything looks very good, but we need somebody to verify. So he was like, "Who is this person?"
That was the same person.
No, this was even
Oh,
a different guy.
one.
The
Yeah.
first person had done his own.
Okay.
This different guy was like the what do you call it? Authenticator. Is it
Okay.
3-factor authenticator? Yes.
He was supposed to verify.
Yeah, he
everything.
was supposed to verify
Yeah.
what the first person had, had
has already-
said.
yeah.
You understand? So he now looked at it, he was like, because they call me Tao.
Okay.
Tao is our surname, my surname. So he was like, "Tao, no, he's the right guy for the job."
So did that one know you before as
We
well?
worked in the same
Oh, I see.
field,
I see.
Egina FPSO. You get so why I'm talking about people is that social skill is also very, very important in your career.
That's true.
You understand? You can be very good at your job, but if you're not an accommodating person, somebody who has good values, who has integrity, somebody who is kind,
Yeah.
no matter how good you are in a job, it may impair your growth
That's very true.
if you don't have good relationship with people.
With people.
You understand?
Because at the
So,
end of the day,
yeah.
it's people that
Yes.
make the decisions. And at the end of the day, there are certain conversations that happen in rooms where you're not going to have the opportunity to be there.
So imagine
It's people that would
yes,
speak
people
for
without
you.
speaking. Imagine if I follow the crowd, to behave anyhow to those
Yeah.
people. Do you think I'll be where I am today?
You'll probably still be building websites for $20.
Yes, for $20. Yes, that's what I'll be doing, honestly. Because at some point I almost lost hope. I was like, why is
And,
it
and
job
how
not
long?
coming?
How long was that between when you arrived in March
Yeah, I got a job.
and
end
when
of-
you got the job?
Yeah, I got a job end of May.
Okay,
So-
so like April, May, so
I felt
two,
like
two
if-
months ish.
Yeah,
It felt
like
long.
a year for me.
It felt so long.
Imagine you're earning money in Nigeria every month.
Yeah,
And
it just stops.
it just stops. But literally not every month, because one of the reasons why I moved to Canada, which I need to mention here, is sadly Africa needs to get it right.
Yeah,
Africa, Nigeria, they are losing a lot of experts every day. Reason is that they are not meeting up to the world standard.
yeah,
Certain people, sadly, certain people are, eating or reaping the works of other people.
So when you say that, are you referring to like one of the situations where you work, but your salary gets delayed,
Okay,
or you don't get paid accordingly to what you're doing?
so mine is the factor of all.
Okay, so it touches on each of those.
Everything. Imagine we know what the standard or what the bidding is for your job.
Okay,
Imagine that what you earn probably is not even up to a quarter of what is on paper for you, first of all.
okay,
Now, what they're even paying you. Imagine you working, like when I moved, not my first company always paid on time.
okay.
You understand? In as much as sadly it wasn't enough, let me put it that way.
It's never enough.
Yes, in as much as it wasn't enough, we were struggling.
It's never enough. Everybody's always wanting more.
Sadly, we're struggling. I must say this, because I came here to say facts and truth.
Yeah.
The company will keep on saying, my first company will keep on saying, oh, there's no money, it's not easy. But you see different managers come and it's like they blow. The managers come
After a
they have
short
big
while.
cars, yes, have big houses. Then people who are actually doing the job, hands-on, getting their hands dirty on
Yeah.
the field, they can't even afford a decent car. I couldn't even afford a bicycle when I was working for that company. Sadly.
That's the first one.
Yes. In fact, I had a manager that would tell me that, Tabeh, you're still young, focus on the experience. Money is not everything.
The experience conversation.
Yes, you're still young. That
That,
kind
that
of
was the story back then, especially
Yes.
for folks that just graduated.
Yes.
When you graduate, within the time when you graduate, and the first 5 years after graduating, every conversation you hear from people, superiors and all that, it's all about focus on the experience.
focus on the experience.
Don't be too ambitious.
Don't be too ambitious. The stuff. So they kept on telling, and I was like, okay, no problem. But at some point, when you now start having responsibility, you'll be like, when does this end?
The skills fell off from your eyes.
You understand? I'm like, so that was the issue. So even when I now switched to my new career, which is a rope access, there was a company, I'm not going to mention its name here because I don't want to spoil your reputation. As much as I would want to mention their name, but I'll just leave them to the hands of God. Is that you go for a job, sometimes it will take 2 to 3 months for them to pay you on that job. Imagine when you be on another job with them, you've not still received payments
For the previous
for
one.
the previous job.
Yeah.
And when at some point we start calling the accountants. We'll call the accountant, we'll call the operation manager. When are you guys paying us our money?
Yeah.
And when they see that we're persistent, they'll not start throwing some little threats like, why are you disturbing us? Don't you want to
Yes.
go? What do you want to go on other jobs for?
You're so aggressive with
You're
this
so
your small
aggressive,
money.
you understand? And it made us go into debt because you have to feed your family, to pay school fees for your children. So you start borrowing money from all these loan sharks, with high interest
Yep.
rates that may be running at weekly or daily, So eventually when you get paid,
Everything is already out
everything
of the
is
door.
gone.
Yeah.
You understand?
Now that's a very heartbreaking situation.
Yeah, so that's the problem with Africa and Nigeria.
Yeah.
You understand? The
I
labor
think-
market is not, or the labor
The standard.
institution is not.
I mean, there are labor laws, but I think a lot of individuals take advantage of that, even companies as well.
Imagine
But-
Angola. Most of our guys now are going to Angola in Nigeria. They're paying them in USD.
Wow.
Yes, they're living. Last time I called, I spoke to some of my former colleagues. They're telling me that so many people have left those FPSOs. Things are breaking down, equipments are breaking down. Those people who had those experiences are no more there.
Yeah.
So it's taking longer time to fix things.
Because it's almost like even if you're in Africa
Mm-hmm.
and you see that things are working in another country, like Angola, that you mentioned, everybody will try a lot to get there.
Of course, definitely.
Because everybody wants to be where it's working. Now, fast forward from that experience to your current experience right now. Have you ever had to call anybody to pay you your money or to pay your salary after you finish working?
Yes, several times. Almost all the time.
No, I mean here.
Okay, no.
Here in Canada.
So-
Have you ever called anybody and you say, look, I just finished
No.
coming from the site for 2 weeks.
So now I'll give you a story.
Yeah.
There was a day I was with one of my colleagues, the Jamaican girl.
Okay.
Why she also plays a big role here is that she's also dark like us.
Okay.
So in as much as she's not African, but she shares the same
Some experiences.
sentiments. And
Yeah.
So she asked me one day, she was like, so how are you dealing with the racism over here, at work and all that? And I looked at her and I was like, what racism? She was like, you can't tell me that you don't see what is going around
Yeah.
work. I was like, racism? You pay me on Friday and you tell me they are being racist. Just pay me my money. You understand? I'm being paid. Why should I be worried about?
See, that's your primary concern.
Yes, I'm like, why should I? Because I notice here there's a lot of mental health issues here.
Yeah.
People are going to depression, and all that stuff. So you see them complaining. Some people even quit their job.
Yeah.
You talk to me and you make me quit my job. The only thing that can make me lose my job is if I'm not performing.
Yeah.
You understand? And I would know where I'm lacking, or maybe, in fact, I just can't get it. Why should I lose somebody cannot talk me into losing my job.
I think it's the mental strength
Yes.
from the environment.
Since from Nigeria.
Yeah.
Nigeria has given me that
because
mental
because
stability.
it comes with there are pros and cons, right? Now the pro is you come with this very tough mental strength to the point where nobody can talk you down.
Yeah.
You have no choice but to be successful.
Yeah.
When you get into an environment where the basics are working, you're satisfied. I just want to get paid. I just want to do my part and get out of here.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? Now, for other people who have been in that system for a much longer time,
Yeah.
because they got so used to that no longer is a problem to them. Getting paid when you put in your hours or your work is no longer a problem to them. There are other things that now become real problems to them, which is where the mental health part of it comes in, right? So absolutely respect folks who are navigating that and who have issues and they're leveraging all the support available. But I think part of the thicker skin that you come into, you're like, that's not an issue that you're worrying,
Yeah.
you're disturbing yourself
I'm
about.
not even bothered about it. At least not now. Maybe when I'm a millionaire, that's when I start thinking about racism.
All right, let's go a little bit soft with you. I know we've been going hard and getting into your JAKPA story.
It's so
and,
soft. It's so soft.
so I'll ask you some questions. I want you to just answer with what comes to your mind first of all.
Okay.
Okay? Jollof rice or shawarma?
Jollof rice.
Ah, so you're one of them.
Not really. Funny enough, I'm not really a fan of rice per se. I'm a swallow person.
Okay.
You know, I like pounded yam. You know, but when it comes to shawarma, I like shawarma, but it's not something I will eat every other day.
Okay.
You know, so but you know that one Niger.
That's where I was about.
Party jollof
Yeah,
rice. I ate one yesterday. I went to visit a friend and my wife's friend actually.
Okay.
And she prepared jollof rice. I was like, wow.
And your brain was bonkers.
I pretended while we were there, you know, because you always put your wife first. You know, I told her, I'm not eating. Oh, don't worry, I'm not eating. So my wife and the kids, they ate, you know. So I see my wife knows me, or she knew that this guy must like this. She just pretending that he's in support of. So she told the woman to, I don't know where she told the woman decided to package.
Just package something
As
for
soon
him.
as we landed the house,
Give him a to-go pack.
I devoured that jollof rice like this. I didn't even leave anything for her.
Oh man, that's a good one. All right, and this other one, football or basketball?
Is it soccer?
I knew you were going to ask that question. Well, we all
Because here in
grew
this
up-
part of the world, they'll say football.
I know
American
it's
football.
just North America that calls it that.
Yes.
The rest of the world knows it as
As
football.
football, yes.
So I'm going back to basics.
Yes.
Soccer and the football that we know, right?
Yes.
So it's that one, that particular soccer, that particular football. I choose to call it football.
Yeah, I know.
And I'm always going to make that
football.
argument.
Yeah, it's because it's played with the foot. I still don't understand why they call that football when they use their hands.
So football, basketball.
So in my own case, what I prefer to watch is football,
Okay.
which is soccer.
Yeah.
But the irony is I played basketball.
Interesting. You played basketball while growing up, or
I played basketball. I played basketball while I was in my secondary school.
okay,
Even when I got to the university.
like competitive or just
Yeah,
for fun?
yeah, competitive.
Okay.
You know, I was the captain of our house in secondary school, Unity
Interesting.
House.
Yeah.
You know, I captained
The
basketball.
inter-house sports
Yes,
and-
yes.
yeah.
I captained our house in basketball. You know, sadly, during our set, somehow the basketball competitions, we didn't really have that support to compete, even if it's locally within
Okay.
the states. You know, we had the invites, you know, but I don't know what really happened. I was a kid then, so I don't really know if it was the school couldn't fund it or, you know, but I was on the team,
Okay.
the main basketball team. You know, then eventually when I got to university, I tried playing basketball in our first year.
Yeah.
You know, I would go to the court, but because of how demanding the university was, especially engineering,
Yeah.
you know, when we closed from school, I would run to the basketball court and I'll play basketball. But the ethics of the school then is that after classes at night, you have to read. I don't know how that's.
So it's like back to back.
If you
There's
don't
no-
read, the next day you just feel like something is missing, like
Yeah.
you're backward, you know. So I struggle to read at night.
Okay.
And when I saw my first semester results, in as much as I passed, means they met the cutoff mark, because back in our engineering, you didn't get into the department until you were in 300 level.
Yeah.
So from first year, second year, you had to hit certain cutoff mark, even though
With
they'll
the
kick you out.
general courses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, they'll take you to maybe library science or something.
Just give you one.
Yeah, exactly. So, so I was like, no, I can't disgrace my father.
Your,
You
your
understand?
father who is already a
Who's
mechanical
already-
engineer.
and he saw himself as a genius. You know, so I was like, I had to now. I said, I just came back one day. I was like, I can't stay.
You
to
gotta step
masters.
up.
So I stopped playing basketball, so I would have the energy to read
Yeah.
it.
So do you still play today? Like just for fun? Like
Funny enough, since I came to Canada, I've not gone to the court. I always want to
Interesting.
go to the court. I've not seen people who take me to the court.
Yeah.
But while I was back in Nigeria, sometimes I go to there's a place called Total Village.
Okay.
It's a total facility. They have a nice court there. I go to play there.
We should
As
we should,
as
we
a
should,
daddy.
we should arrange.
Yes, I go to
we should
play as a
arrange,
daddy.
we should arrange some court time sometime because I mean I play basketball for fun sometimes, and I know Oche also plays basketball. So
Oh, really? Nice.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
That means I
So
should.
a couple of
I should
folks
join
that that even Ogundu as well plays. So once in a while it'll be fun to just get folks around. Now this last one is still in the same light of this, but when you heard your house rent was X amount, what was your reaction?
Rents. I would say that's another culture shock.
And you were still converting back to.
I'm still converting to now.
You're going to give yourself heart attack.
So, in Nigeria, I was staying in a rented apartment in Port Harcourt
Okay.
with my wife. And where I was staying, our annual rent was 500,000 naira.
Okay.
With the current Canadian rates, that rent would be like maybe
Approximately
$400.
$500.
Less than $400. Sorry, less than $500.
Yeah.
Maybe about 480 something or $490.
Yeah. And that's for the whole year.
That's for the whole year. As that's recently, even when we called some of our neighbors, former neighbors that are still there, they said they've increased the rent to about, I think, 800,000 naira. So
Okay.
it's still less than 1,000 Canadian dollars.
Yeah.
And the first place I got here, because I was still trying, I was like looking for the cheapest place to stay in, you know? In as much as my wife didn't like it, I was like, we're going to stay in an apartment. When my wife went to the apartment to see the place, she was like, this place is small. It's giving me this claustrophobic feeling. I was like,
Interesting.
you see that claustrophobia? Is your 3 years rent in Nigeria. So please, calm down.
Yeah.
So I got into an apartment that's a 2-bedroom apartment that costs like $1,600 or less than $1,600.
Okay.
That's where I got in, you know. But
And that's every month.
every
Just for
month,
context.
every month, you know. But I had to leave that place because the apartment comes with, in as much it was a luxury apartment, very nice. It looks like you're staying in a hotel room and all that stuff. You know, one challenge I didn't like about it is that, you know, since so many people are staying there, if there is any smoke detection, somebody is boiling something, and it gets to the smoke detectors, there's an alarm. You have to now go and muster, even if there's no fire. You know, so
Just for safety reasons.
yes, to call the fire service. Fire service to come, make sure they check that everywhere is okay.
Yeah.
You know, before you go. And sometimes this happens in the dead of the winter. So imagine waking up your 3-year-old and your 5-year-old child in the middle of the night.
Just start taking them to the master point.
Taking them to the muster point in that cold. And sometimes you'll be there 1 hour, 2 hours.
Oh.
Yes. So it was a big challenge.
It was a
Sometimes
rough experience for you guys.
when I'm at work, doing my 2-week shift in Fort McMurray, my wife will call me midnight. Sometimes I'm sleeping because I need to resume work by 6, 7 a.m.
Yeah.
I'm sleeping, I wake up, I see missed calls from like around 2 a.m.
And that would just probably make your heart
So
skip
it made
a bit.
me,
'Cause,
you know, so disorientated and all that stuff. So, you know, and I had to, you know, take the bull by the horn, you know, to now go into a single house,
single family home.
single family home. And
Okay.
I'm paying over. you know how much it is. That let me know. I don't want to say because if I say that I can even faint.
Well, I mean, it comes back to you converting and giving yourself heart attack because I know we're chatting about rent and the culture shock from there.
It's still a culture shock to today.
That one is likely not going to go away at any point in time.
Go.
All right. So, family, when you brought your wife and your kids over, how was that transition for them as well? Do you think, from your wife's perspective, because I know raising kids here, especially young kids, it comes with its own um, issues. Like it requires that additional attention. So how did you guys balance it up, especially with you being away from work, being away from home for a couple of weeks for work? Was there any pressure from that side to try to keep things
so
going?
speaking on that,
Yeah,
it has its ups and its downs.
yeah,
For myself, I can speak for myself. I wouldn't really know much about my wife because women, from my understanding of women, is they're like the foundation of the home.
yeah.
So they could be going through some kind of challenges that, they wouldn't really let their husband know because I just feel that's how God created them,
Okay.
to, take care of the home, irrespective of the issues.
Yeah,
So, but from my own experience or my own opinion, I feel like it's the advantages outweighs the disadvantages.
okay.
And I'll start with the disadvantages. Back in Nigeria, we had help.
Yeah.
You
So like nannies help. Did you guys have a
nannies,
living help?
Relatives, yes, we had a living help.
Okay.
And Nigeria labor is cheap, so you could afford to pay a nanny because you pay them monthly.
Yeah.
But here is hourly. And in some cases, that hourly could be the monthly pay
That's right.
back in Nigeria.
That's right.
So raising kids is less pressured in Nigeria because my wife was working
Okay.
in Nigeria while I was working as well. She had a full-time job. I had a full-time job as well. So the only good part was that since I was working offshore, I go in sometimes for 28 days in, 28 days out. So when I'm out, I could really support the home.
Okay.
Should be
And would you
100%
consider yourself a hands-on dad?
Oh
or-
man, I sometimes give my kids a
shower the kids
and
and
all that
all-
stuff.
yeah.
Since my son resumes school year, I shower. I give him a bath every.
So was
every
that
month.
the same back in Nigeria, or that's another level of attention that you developed when you guys got here?
For me, I'll just say, I think I'm like a Gen Z. Let me put it that. In as much as I'm not Gen Z,
Yeah.
I'm different from our dad.
Yeah.
Because at our dad's time they were like the Lord Almighty kind of
Exactly.
figures. But I derive joy, having that physical connection with
yeah.
my kids. So I don't see that as any issue. In fact, when my wife put to bed for my first son, she only had 3 months maternity leave. So she had to resume work.
Yeah.
You get. So when I came back from offshore, when she goes to work, I'm the one with the 3-month-old baby.
Yeah.
So sometimes she had this pump where she will pump breast milk and she will keep.
You have to feed.
So I'll be
feed
the one
baby.
to feed the baby.
That's good.
Yes, I'll be the one to feed the baby, and when that's done, I will now switch the formula.
Yeah.
Then wait for her to come back from work by 5 p.m. I did that for like each time I was around.
That's amazing. And shout out to all the dads out there who have had to navigate stuff like that, because I think in that context, adjusting here was not really a problem for you because you're already
I
used
was
to
already
it.
doing that.
You're already doing
So
it.
while I'm at work, the only challenge here now is that back in Nigeria, while I go to work, her mom will come home
Okay.
and she will like stand in for me
Yeah.
to fill in the gap because she has to work. You get.
I see.
But the advantage here is that the collective funds we were making, both of us, as we were working,
Yeah.
is not compared to what I am making.
Just you alone.
Just me alone.
Yeah.
Because currently she hasn't gotten a job.
Okay.
But I'm more like okay, no, why don't we just build her business, because she has a business, you get. So I was like, okay, why don't I build a business, because Canada has harsher weathers.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want her to go through those.
Especially if
harsh-
she's going
yeah,
to the office regularly.
yeah, so, and it's about what she wants though.
Okay.
She told me, okay, this is what she wants to do. She wants to, build a business and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, fine, no problem. So
Because even if she had to go to work, another thing to think about
Yes.
is daycare for kids.
daycare.
Because the daycare
yes.
cost is not cheap as
It's
well.
not, it's not cheap.
I know for those who are probably doing it, I think I probably heard the last time there was some subsidy or whatever, but
Yeah,
it
it's
depends on
subsidy
how
as
much
kids.
you're earning,
Yes.
right? Before
No, it's flat now.
Oh, it's-
Funny
it's a
enough,
flat
for
rate now?
Alberta, I don't
Yeah?
know if it's for the whole of Canada, but for Alberta, just a few months ago, they made it flat for, I think it's for everybody. Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah,
that's
flat
that's
rate.
really good. Because I remember back then, with kids having to go to daycare, I think in a month I was spending over $2,000.
Whoa.
That's in addition to rent and other stuff.
Oh man, that's
Yeah, because
that's crazy.
so having flat rate, that would be a lifesaver for a lot of
that's
families.
you convert to naira.
No, I don't
2
convert
point something million naira for a month.
I don't. I,
How is it a month?
per month. Yeah.
Oh my god.
So I don't bother converting because it's like I told you that's like
So I think now for a child is about 320 something dollars.
that's really good.
About for a
Yeah.
child.
So 2 kids, that's under
About
$700.
Yeah,
so
of course, under
Okay.
$700 for 2 kids.
that's not bad. So we have a tradition in podcasts
Okay.
where the previous guest leaves a question for the next guest,
Nice.
and I don't get to read the question. And the only time when we open up the book is when you're seated right there on the chair.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you the book. You're going to look at the last question. You're going to read out the question, and then you answer the question.
Can I open up?
Yeah, you can open. Sure.
Okay, that's the last question.
Yeah.
I like this question. Okay. How would you want to be remembered if you were no longer actively serving or working?
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's a deep one.
Deep and wonderful question. So, I would say I would love to be remembered as the man for everybody.
Okay. What do you mean by the man for everybody?
It still goes back to my social,
The social skills?
skill.
Yeah.
My mom would say, before she died, God rest her soul, she would say, Tabeh, the world will remember your name. The world will know you.
So it's like her prophesying.
Yes. So I want to be remembered by the world as somebody who positively impacted to the society.
I like that. And one of the ways you want to do that is leveraging your social skills,
Yes.
connecting with people,
Connecting with people
impacting people positively through your contact with them,
and
and leaving them better than you met them.
yes, navigating them towards success.
That's good.
Speaking positive,
Yeah.
being positive, channeling positivity. The energy I want
Yeah.
to channel to people is positive energy that will
So
make
not-
them better.
Lots of positive vibes.
Yes, no negativity.
No negative
I'm the kind of
vibes.
person that I don't believe in superstitions,
Yeah.
and things that will make people depressed and all that stuff. Even at work, I try to be that happy soul, try to make people happy. Like, don't
Life is not that serious, guys. I like that.
Who dictates how life will be for us, not the other way around.
And sometimes when you inject that positivity, even in an environment where everybody's feeling a certain type of way, before you know it, it's very contagious.
Yes.
So people start picking up that positive energy and they actually start feeling better.
Yeah.
I think the experiments that can actually prove what you're saying.
Yeah, very true.
But that's really good. So now it's your turn to write a question for the next guest, and we'll give you some time to write the question.
Yeah.
So you can flip it over, write a question for the next guest, and when the next guest, if that part is full, you can flip over to the next one.
What should I give this person? Are you in something hard?
Yeah.
Okay, you're not.
Yeah, I don't have
okay,
to.
okay. So this is for the next person. I'll be so excited to watch the next podcast.
Yeah. You'll be watching to see
Yes.
who comes after you.
Yes, because
And whether they struggle with that question or not.
no, they shouldn't. It's something
Should be very straightforward and
straightforward,
easygoing.
easygoing, you know.
I like that. So, my last question to you would be, if you look at someone that just arrived, that just landed, whether it's Canada or the US or Australia or the UK, and they're trying to navigate their way through, what sort of advice would you leave that person that would help the person move a little bit faster, achieve their goals a bit more quickly compared to them just navigating things blindly?
So, firstly, I like this question so much, and it's something I thought of before coming to this podcast that I want people to know about.
Yeah.
Firstly, my advice to anyone who wants to immigrate, especially from Africa, from Nigeria, my motherland, is that before you think of immigration, first of all, build yourself
Okay.
intellectually and try to obtain a skill. A skill is very, very important, because I know in Nigeria, so many people, go through the four walls of the educational institution, be it university and all. But what lacks in many people is a skill. The skill has helped me in this country to take care of my family single-handedly,
I see.
paying the monthly rents, being able to feed, staying comfortable, and enjoying the process of Canada. Because I see a lot of people on social media comparing, this part of the world to like, oh, it's better to stay in Nigeria than to come abroad. I would say those people were not prepared before coming here.
Yeah.
And even when they came here, probably they were not steered in the right direction that will put them in that path where they would be productive to themselves.
Yeah.
So my advice even goes to people who are here and people who are yet to come.
Yeah.
Develop a skill. It could be welding, it could be plumbing, it could be carpentry, there's pipe fitting, there's NDT, non-destructive testing, which is inspection. There's even API. You have API in 570, API in 510, that's pressure vessel inspection and piping inspection. You have some other codes in welding inspection and different things. There's installation, there's sandblasting and painting. There's so many. I can't mention all of them. Probably, maybe, while you're watching this podcast, on the comment section, we'll get to list a lot of things. For people who are already in Canada, you could go to SAIT, that's the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology, which is in Calgary. I think you have one in
Yeah, there's one in the Northern Alberta Institute.
Yes, nothing. Thank you. NATE.
Yeah.
They offer these courses there that will propel you into the industry, not just the oil and gas. It could be the manufacturing industries or whatever industry that is in Calgary or that is in Canada, sorry, that would make you hit the ground running. Just get a skill. Some people, they say, oh, I'm an engineer, I'm a professor, I'm this, I'm that, I can't do that. Me personally, when I came to Canada, I didn't mention that. I even tried the IT route. I'm a certified system administrator for ServiceNow. I'm a certified application developer for ServiceNow. I did those courses.
Yeah.
I went online. I was like, okay, if it's IT that would navigate me, you understand? That's why I started
Put you in that direction.
I started even developing websites.
Yeah.
Now that same website, just so you know, I also taught my wife
How to do it.
how to do it. As much as she's not making much money, but she's making something, making more than the $20 I was making.
Yeah.
Making about $200. It's like a side gig. Now, when that money comes, it's good groceries that can take care of the month.
Yeah, that's true.
So you need to equip yourself with a skill. If you're back there in Nigeria, welding, there is always fabrication. People are building every day. They need welders.
Yeah.
Even if your welding that you do in Nigeria is not the same certificate as required in Canada, because Canada has a lot of, to do the CGSB, which is the Canadian government standard board, and stuff. So far you have the experience already, or you have that certificate, it is easier to transit or convert. When you come in, where you just go to those states, go to those mates. There's some of them are short courses. Rope access is short. 4 days, you're done.
You're done.
You get.
So skill's a top
Skill
one.
is very, very important.
I like that.
You can, for me, for instance, now, I'm a mechanical engineer. For now, I'm putting food on the table with my rope access. I've even checked that my rope access pays me as much or even more than a mechanical engineer here in Canada.
Yeah.
For now, I need to put food on the table, which I'm doing that. Once we are completely stable, probably the business is running and it can take care of the basic needs.
And you can
I most likely
pivot
I
from
want to
that.
do my master's.
Yeah.
I probably want to do my PhD. I probably want to teach in a university. I want to be that expert. Probably want to be a scientist. Do you understand?
Yeah.
I'll get to that stage. But I wouldn't do it at the expense of struggling.
Yeah. Because you want to be able to do it yourself
I can
without
say-
depending on
I can
other
say,
people.
Yeah, I'm not depending on
And
anyone.
also not taking student loans.
No. I'm not going to take a student.
Because that's
you just
another
made
part,
You
right?
just made a valid point. If I want to further my education, I don't need to take any loan. I don't need to take any student loan. All I just need, probably I just make a payment plan
Yeah.
and pay from my pocket.
Take care of it.
I'll take care of it. So that's the idea, Get a skill. A friend of a friend I try to advise, he's school in the UK, he's still chasing Total, Chevron, this one, that one.
Yeah,
He's still hanging there.
The big names, they keep you, they give you hope to keep looking forward. But how much of that hope do you actualize?
Exactly.
Because there are a lot of people who are chasing those same big names. But I think what you called on is super important because
Very, very important.
the skill, in addition to your education, it's just
Touch of
catapulted you.
Touch of excellence.
Yeah. So
Puts you there.
if you're thinking about immigrating, or if you just got here and you're struggling to get a job, consider getting a skill because that would definitely make a lot of difference for you. Tabeh Towel,
Yes.
thank you for being here on JAKPA Stories.
Thank you very much.
It was really amazing having this chat with you. And I think as part of a future podcast, we're going to check in again.
Yeah.
Probably invite you over for a group chat that we're going to be having with some other folks with some really key topics that we feel that people need to talk more about it.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
So once again, thank you so much for being on JAKPA Stories.
Thank you very
And
much.
for most
JAKPA.
of our guests, if they want to connect with you, how can they connect with you?
Okay, so I think I have an active page on Instagram. It's Easy Tabeh Boy. Easy Tabeh Boy.
We're gonna put it up there so
Yes,
you guys
yes.
can connect
So you
with
can
him.
check me out on Instagram. Yes, I think I'm
LinkedIn? Are you on LinkedIn?
Yes, I'm on LinkedIn. Yes,
Yeah.
my LinkedIn profile is just my name, my first name, and my last name, Tabeh Tao.
We'll put it up there as
I'm
well.
also on Facebook, Tabeh Tao. So you could reach out to me there. People who want to, especially for people who want to immigrate, people who are looking at getting the right directions in terms of what to do, courses to do.
Yeah, because I think some listeners out there
Yes, you can chat
who are
me,
in the
yeah.
engineering field, who might want to learn a bit about what you talked about, how to get the rope access certification or any of the other certifications that you talked about. I think it's a really important direction where it focuses more on your skills. And I think for a lot of those jobs, you don't get people who are skilled in those areas
Yeah.
to jump into it. So to be skilled in those areas, I think it opens up a lot of doors. So for any folks who are interested in getting into those areas, we'll connect them with
In
you.
fact, just to tell you guys on this podcast, 2 weeks ago back at work, there was a time my supervisor came out and he was like, they've searched the whole of North America. They are looking for level 3 rope access. I'm a level 3 rope access, that's the highest level in rope access. We do the supervision, rescue, make sure that people are, adhering to the safety rules,
standards.
safety standards at work at height. They say the whole of North America that they are looking for level 3s. And I was like, oh my God, no number of level 3s in Nigeria.
There's a lot of them.
Sadly, the way Canada is that, they try to make sure that the immigration process is not porous. So, employers are not just at their beck and call, just employ people from overseas, But the HR team told me, if these people can make it to Canada having a work permit, they have a job.
You have a job. Yeah.
That's a skill. And the irony is that there are people in this Canada that are looking for jobs.
I think that's where the power of information comes in, where you know an area in demand, you know the skill set required, and then you know what you need to do to be able to get that skill set. But once again, really appreciate the time, and I look forward to chatting with you again on the future episode of the podcast. Thank you so much, bro.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.